Hi, I'm Rebecca Grant. I am a TCCO volunteer in Group 121. My site is in Amperwapo in Pitsanulok. And I'm here at Longrien Chumchon Bantangam, which is a little pratom with 75 students, and I'm talking about my soap project. Basically, at this school with some of the younger students, we made soap from scratch. And then it's a liquid hand soap, and we did a combination of buying materials, using some money from the school budget, and having the kids bring in some of the materials from home. And all together, a couple teachers and myself and the kids, we made liquid hand soap. And then we did a sort of hygiene Olympics day where we had fun games and activities, but we also taught the students about the importance of hand washing and germ transmission. And then we put the liquid hand soap around the school, over near the bathrooms, over by the canteen where they eat lunch, and we just try to promote the students washing their hands as often and as thoroughly as possible. So I knew I wanted to do a project that focused on hand washing, and around our school we had a couple bars of soap that would, sit outside the bathroom sinks, and the bars of soap probably had more germs on them than the kids' hands. So I knew that liquid hand soap was definitely what I wanted, and liquid hand soap is expensive in Thailand and not accessible at my site. So I was trying to figure out a way that we could use liquid hand soap at school but also do it economically. And at Reconnect, my co-teacher and I met a teacher from Udon Thani who told us that at the cooperatives, at the sahagons, which should be at the Ampere level and at the Jangwat level, that you can buy kits and make liquid hand soap yourself, and it's much more economical than just going out and purchasing hand soap. So it was sort of all those things coming together, wanting to teach the kids about good hygiene, not wanting them to miss school, finding out that you could make the soap yourself and have it be a community project. All of those things just sort of all came together nicely to give the idea for the project. So one Friday when we had some time, my co-teacher and I drove into Pitlog and we went to the cooperative and we asked about the soap, and they gave us what was basically a kit. It came with some of the NJet sip, and then it came with a list of directions, and it came with a little vial of almost like a perfume that just sort of gives it a nice smell, and the whole kit cost 150 baht, and it yielded ultimately about maybe 30 bottles, water bottle size bottles of liquid hand soap. So that's 5 baht a bottle. It's dirt cheap. So we took the recipe, the kit, back to school with us, but there was other things that it called for not in the kit. So that was where we had the community and the students involved with bringing things from home. We made a version with kaffir lime, which in Thai is magrud, where it's kind of like those big wrinkly limes. The students brought those in just by the bucket full. And then we also did a tamarind version, which the students brought some in, although you need wet tamarind, so that was a process, like transforming the dry tamarind into the wet tamarind. And we decided to bottle the soap in recycled old, juice bottles and water bottles and soda bottles to give it a recycling component as well. And other materials like water, like milk actually, to make the soap a little bit creamier, all of the pots and the pans and the buckets and the bowls, all of those things we used the schools. When we actually sort of cooked the soap and steamed the mixture and heated it, we did it at the school's kitchen. We tried to keep as much of it local as we possibly could. And so we followed the directions, but we also kind of had to improvise along the way and adapted things to our situation. But, one of the first steps is straining or preparing the kaffir limes and or the tamarind, which we had the kids help us with. They were cutting the limes and they were squeezing them and then straining it through cheesecloth, so you just sort of get the juice that you can then put in. And then you mix the NJet sip together with water and then with a little bit of milk, and you need like a big sort of bucket or a big pot to do that. like this, and then you have to stir. And you have to stir for a long time, for maybe about 45 minutes at a minimum. So we had the kids form a long line. We kind of made a game out of it where one kid would come and they would stir and then go to the back of the line, and the next kid would come and help. And that worked for about a half an hour of the students doing it, and then they got tired. So my co-teacher and I took over with the stirring. And you stir and you stir and you stir, and then when it starts to get a little bit frothy and bubbly, at that point, you put it over some heat and you need to stir it again, and then you add in, some of the good smelling, kind of like it's almost like floral oil that came in a kit, and you add in the kaffir lime or the tamarind. And I mean, it's kind of like cooking, it's kind of like baking. You just put everything together and put it over heat and then hope that it turns out okay. In addition to just making the soap and putting it around the school, I wanted to do something else to kind of a culmination activity, because the students really worked so hard on the project with us, and they were the ones squeezing the limes and they were the ones stirring, and they were really excited about it. So I wanted to do something that didn't just focus on the actual process of making the soap, but also really to focus on germs and hygiene and kind of do health education. So my co-teacher and I planned what we called a hygiene Olympics, and it was one day, and it was right around the time we finished making our whole first round of soap. So I think we had, like I said, maybe 60 bottles of soap, and we planned all of these activities. So the day started with a pretty straightforward lesson on proper hand washing technique and why it's important and what germs are, and that the Thai teachers were responsible for. They explained it in Thai to all the students, and we had them practice washing their hands. And then I had come up with a slate of activities that addressed both the importance of hand washing and were just kind of fun ways to play with the soap so the kids would think it was fun, and talked about germs. And we pretty much just did those activities for the rest of the day, and the kids were so excited about it, and it's such a good time, and I definitely think that they learned something. And by doing that, the soap became something that was fun and cool and that they actually wanted to use. It wasn't sort of like, oh, I have to wash my hands. It was something that they actively were interested in. So some of the activities, we did a hand washing step relay, where there's 5 to 7 steps of proper hand washing, where you go like this, you go like this, you go like this. And we had a relay race where each kid would be responsible for one step. So they would mime the step and then turn around and hit the hand of the student behind them who would do their step, and they would circulate around. And that really ingrained in the students' minds that you can't just throw your hands under this faucet for 3 seconds and think that that's sufficient. For the germ transmission unit, I guess, we played blob tag, where I picked a few students to be it, and I put baby powder on their hand, and then we said go, and they chased all the other students, and then when they tagged someone, they transmitted the germs, that student also became part of it. So they just got the idea of how quickly germs can spread. And we did a sort of like a red light, green light game with true-false statements about hygiene and hand washing. So my co-teacher wrote out about 15 statements about the importance of hand washing and germs and hygiene and getting sick and bacteria. And then we handed out cards that were either red cards or green cards to the students. And she would read the statement, and if the student thought that it was right, hold up the green card. If they thought it was wrong, you hold up the red card. And whenever the student guessed incorrectly, they would be out. And that was a good way to get a dialogue going about the importance of hand washing and hygiene. And then the final activity, we just did a fireman bucket race. It wasn't really educational, but it was so fun, and there was soap suds flying everywhere, and kids were throwing water, and everyone's playing, and it was a really fun day. And it was a really nice way of kind of celebrating, even though it was educational, but celebrating that we'd made all this soap and put it in bottles, and that the whole school was going to commit to becoming cleaner.